Good morning, folks. I'm going to show you guys some asset reallocation that I did earlier this week. If you remember last week, I had this 2-car hauler, big, it's 40-footer, it's huge. And Sarah's like, yo, we should sell that. We don't need it. I'm like, well, I kind of want to keep it, it's 40 foot. You never know. You never know when you need it. Take it to a job and go do a turn, basically hit a telephone pole with it. It was like there was a cable down the telephone pole and the light caught it and then it kind of like was going and then it just bent, it just cracked, and telephone pole was still up in the air and it was good. And I was like, well, Sarah's probably right. This trailer is ridiculously long and we don't need it. Sold it for $42,500. And what I've done with that $42,500 is I've repurchased here a tiller for $1,500, and I purchased a used trailer for $1,400, and then a little bit of new wheel and tire situation for like another $100. So, concept called bucket theory. My buddy Blake called it bucket theory, and I'm like, yo, that's genius. When I heard it on Periscope, I was like, this is why I have money problems. This explains my money problems. Blake described it like this. He's like, I got a business bucket, right? All the money comes into my business bucket, and then I got to put it in my other smaller buckets, like my equipment bucket and my food bucket and all those little buckets. And I was like, that is brilliant. My dad, about a year before this, had a client. They were selling real estate to this guy, and the guy was like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and buy this property. I'm gonna finance this. I'm gonna put it into this investment, and then when that pays out, I'll go ahead and flip this property and buy another house. And my dad was like, whoa, it's I'm your real estate broker. It's not my job to give you finance advice, but from experience, don't co-mingle your funds. Don't do that. Dad learned the hard way because when we were kids, he had about $160,000 in this investment. It was a foreign exchange investment. Long story short, it was a complete Ponzi scam. And he could have had our house at the time paid for. And he was like in his late 30s. And so he was in a spot where he could have definitely had the house paid for with the money he had in this investment. And so what he did is he had his house funds, really they should have been pegged for house funds, in the investing bucket. Well, that investing bucket blew a hole in the bottom and everything in the bucket went out. So I learned, I was like, oh, well, home base is one of those things you got to check off early, right? It's like, if you're a younger guy, maybe you're a contractor, that's why you watch this channel, and you're like, all right, you got to get your equipment, right? Everybody knows this. You got to get your tools, right? You go to your granddad's shed, and he's got every craftsman tool ever made, right? And you're like, okay, well, I got to get my tools. That's a lifetime endeavor. Then you got to get your house situation. Whatever house you need, you got to figure that out. What does that look like? And you collect your things, and then you get to a certain point in life, and you're like, okay, now I've got my initial setup. People play these games where they consistently commingle funds, and back at pre-2015, I was commingling my funds. Money would come into my business account, and then if I needed, to pay for that, I'd take care of that. Well, it's all the same money, right? It's like food. It's like my wife, she can't have like beans and rice touching on the plate. Like they can't touch. I'm like, it all goes to the same place, Mix those beans on top of that rice, good to go. She's like, no, they can't touch. It all goes to the same place. Well, I approached my money like they all, it's just one big bucket. It's all going kind of the same place. You divvy it out there. Well, it just doesn't work in finance. It just does not work. You've got to separate things. You've got to have your buckets. What I learned from those experiences is I don't commingle my funds. I keep my buckets separated. So I don't commingle my funds. I will rebalance my funds. So I'll look at each bucket and be like, do we have enough in this bucket? Or should we move these funds from this bucket to another bucket? I just did this with some equipment and some trucks. I'm looking at the truck fund and the vehicle fund, and I'm like, yo, we got like $55,000 in vehicle in this family. Do we need $55,000 in vehicle in this family? And I've reduced it down. Now I'm sitting in cash in it, so it's still there, but I've moved it from the vehicle fund to just kind of sitting in the equipment fund. It's just kind of sitting there. It can go anywhere I need to go. It can go to the housing fund. It can go to the investment fund. It can go to the toy fund. It can go wherever it's got to go. It's just sitting there in cash. So the $42,500 that I got last week on the trailer sale, I kept in the equipment fund. Now, I put like 70% of that to work into new equipment, which is actually going to cash flow a lot more for me than the old trailer was. Like today, I'm going to, cash flow at least like $1,500 on it. So, good investments, right? The other part of the old trailer sale there from last week is still sitting in cash because I don't have any purchases or investments today that I can deploy that capital to. I don't have it. Like, I'm sure I could find somewhere, but I'm just gonna sit in cash, right? Because I don't know what my next move is. So I'm like, just gonna sit in cash on it. But I've reinvested some of it, but all of that money has stayed in the equipment fund. I've basically decided now the equipment fund needs to be where it is. I don't know if I got to increase the equipment fund or reduce it, so I'm not rebalancing it at this point in time. I'm just reallocating it within the bucket.